Without a doubt. And I think stylistically, and I knew going into this, I think this is possibly the toughest fight Conor is ever going to have.
Wow.
There is no, who else can walk through shots like Nate can? And the difference, it was a very different shot, this fight, than the previous fight, because the previous fight, Conor was going forward a lot, and Nate was retreating, and Conor's best shot, that left hand, was kind of hitting him on the move, so Nate was moving with it. But this one was the perfect shot. We drew Nate in with the leg kicks, and as Nate moved forward, Conor hit him. So you've got two forces there. You've got Nate coming forward and Conor's shot coming forward. So that's, you can't get a heavier shot than that. And what does Nate do? Puts his hands out and walks forward. It's I'm not going to lie, I was slightly terrified. There was a funny part in the fight. I don't know whether it was picked up or not, but they were in our corner, and Conor had thrown a turning side kick, which wasn't part of the game plan at all. And I kind of shouted at Conor, and he was like right beside me. And I was like, game plan, stick to the game plan, discipline. And like in the midst of all that madness, Nate like kind of looks down at me and goes, F you and your game plan. It was a crazy moment. It was a crazy moment. So I'm having a conversation with him, his eyes all over the place, and that was deep in round 4. But it was, but for me, like I was looking at him, just taking these heavy shots and walking forward and smiling. And in my head, I'm going, I'm glad I'm on the outside here, because this is insane that, Conor's hit him with everything. And, it's an incredible ability Nate has. And that's why I think it's the toughest fight, because a 55 or 45, anyone else that Conor lands those shots on, which he will, over a 25-minute period, some of those shots are going to land. They're all going to go down. Only Nate can take those. So I think this is, until maybe the trilogy, the toughest fight Conor will ever have. That takedown as well, I was expecting that, because he did a very similar one on Josh Thompson, and we had a counter to it, but it didn't quite pull off. But technically, over the 25 minutes, it's a real joy for me, I have to say, and of course Conor. Like all the shots. Like I have a WhatsApp message for Conor. We both sent each other a kind of an essay on the day of the fight. I kind of sent him what's going to happen, and he sent me back what's going to happen. And it's funny looking over it.
Wow.
Every shot that we spoke about happened. Every sequence that we drilled happened. So it's just really nice to put so much. My life has somewhat been on hold for almost half a year now. And I've thought of nothing else except this, and we come up with formulated a very strong game plan, a very detailed game plan, and just technique by technique, move by move, it played out as we drilled endlessly in the gym, So it's just really, really gratifying to have, hard work rewarded. And, Arthur went out and did what he did, and it was a very one-sided contest, and I just couldn't see it being different in the main event. Round 1 was really, really, really gorgeous. It was that was one of the best rounds I've ever seen. There's very few guys who would have come off the stool for round 2 or been able to go back at the end of round 1, other than Nate, because the heavy leg kicks, he got dropped, that left hand landed clean. That was just a really nice round. And there was a part of me that was somewhat looking forward to seeing 25 minutes. I wanted to play out all the techniques. I wanted him to go into the deep waters. I wanted the cardio training to be rewarded, because now he's obsessed with that. Like he said himself that he's a blue belt in that type of training, but he will be a black belt. And whatever window of opportunity was there for other fighters is gone now, because that's his obsession now. And he's taking a few days off, and then we're starting up those cycles again and working our way towards our purple belt. Big John McCarthy is an incredible referee, but I was getting a little bit worried the way he was looking at Conor at the end of round 3. And of course, that's his job. But I was just terrified he was going to step in, when kind of Nate flurried him against the fence, because, like I said, watch it in slow mo. Look how he's. It's a style of boxing that Conor doesn't play often. He actually played a little bit of some of that boxing footage that got out when he was sparring the pro in LA. This kind of leaning back on the ropes and just catching shots with his lead shoulder in his hand. He's very, very good at that. He doesn't play it. He hasn't played it in a MMA fight before, because who fights like Nate? Who steps in and throws 6-punch combinations, whereas MMA is normally one shot or two and a takedown. But I knew what he was doing, putting us back on the fence. That kind of rope-a-dope style, if you want to call it. And I knew when the bell went, he was going to, in those 60 seconds, be recovered for round 4. But there was a moment of fear that the crowd or John would step in. But John's an incredible referee. He wasn't going to make that mistake. I'll tell you a secret, that I had a plan to sit down and do this speech with him. And after the weigh-ins, we were backstage on our own, and he just looked at me dead in the eye, cold, and said, "The illusion of insanity is over. Now is game plan." And I was like, "Whoa, okay. My job is done. Well, what am I going to add to that?" So he stood up there and he did the screaming and posturing, and then just come back out stage and like a serial killer just looked at me and said that. It blew me away, because it's funny, like with Orla, I was saying, like, I want to, I had this speech in my mind, and then I just texted her that line, what he said, and I said, it's over, the fight's done. But it's not. Conor, like I've said in many interviews, he's much smarter than me at navigating his way through this. I'm about the fight. I enjoy individual fights. I enjoy preparing for them. I don't really focus on belts and which path. He's the black belt at that. I'm a white belt. For me personally, I will be pushing for 55. That's just my big brother kind of opinion. I like to see him at 55. I remember that Bushinger fight. He looked like a tank to me, and I just think he was designed, but to be a lightweight. With all due respect to the 45 guys, especially after that fight with Nate, what are they going to do? What's anyone going to do to him? I just think anyone he faces at that weight class, it's almost like he's cheating with the amount of power he has. He could make the weight. Don't get me wrong on that. He might do it just to spite me. But with having Lockhart on board, I mean, the 45 he made last December was the easiest one he's ever done. So it's definitely in him to do it. But he's just running through people at that weight class, and there would have been a nice build-up. I had a little vision in my head, him and Edgar in New York, maybe in November. But unfortunately, those guys didn't keep up their end of the bargain. They had to go out there and prove they deserved it, prove that they had improved, and go out there and beat Aldo, and they didn't. The fight was even more one-sided than their first contest. I guess Aldo had learned from the last time. I think it would be nice for him to be the champion, get the belt at 55, and then defend it against Nate. I think that would be a pretty amazing fight. Maybe in Croke Park in Dublin. That's.
Oh my gosh.
I'd push for that. How cool would that be, huh? I think I tweeted out a picture of the Joker and Batman. He's like, "Why do you want to kill me?" And he's like, "I don't want to kill you. You complete me. What would I be without you?" And there's something Batman Joker-esque about Conor and Nate. I think they're destined to do this forever.